Okay, we are going live online.
Okay, and we're getting our council starting to come on. Let's see.
Erin, do you want to test your audio video? Erin Arnsteen?
Yes.
But nice seeing you, Erin Heacock.
Hi.
Do you want to test your video?
Sure. Can you see me?
Perfect.
Okay.
You sound great.
Hey.
Okay, so if you want to go ahead and mute yourself and take yourself off video until the item is called.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, Cindy, I think are we going to be running a few minutes late here? Where are we sitting?
We are ready to go.
Ready to go. Okay, I wanted to just look and make sure we've got our council, we've got our city attorney, we've got our city manager, and it appears that we have certainly a quorum, and we'll just get moving. I'm seeing Council Member Hardy not yet with us, but I'm sure he will join us as he was in closed session. So we'll just get moving with some of the initial aspects here, and he'll catch up to us as he comes on. So this is the City of St. Helena regular City Council meeting, Tuesday, April 26, 2022. And Cindy, will you help us with the remote access instructions, please?
Certainly. I'll share my screen. All right, to participate during public comment, you would dial 669-900-6833. At the prompt, you would enter the meeting ID, which is 830-7743-8427, and you would press the pound key. During public comment, you would press *9 to speak.
Thank you. And as we get into the meeting, we'll get into an item talking about returning to live in-person meetings. So we'll talk about that a little later in the meeting. I want to remind folks that simultaneous Spanish interpretation services during meetings can be scheduled upon request. To ensure interpreters are available, requests must be made at least 72 hours in advance by calling the office of the city clerk at 707-968-2640 or emailing cityclerk@cityofsthelena.org. And so with that, then we will do the roll call.
Mayor Ellsworth,
Here.
Vice Mayor Doreen,
Here.
Councilor Chateau,
Here.
Paul,
Here.
Hardy.
Here.
Very well. Now we'll move to the Pledge of Allegiance. Folks, if you would mute your microphones and place your hands on your heart and follow with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll move to our adoption of the agenda. I'll look to the city clerk to see if there are any changes to this evening's agenda.
There are none.
Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion on adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
I'll second.
Councilor Hardy,
Yes.
Chateau,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Doreen,
Yes.
Mayor Ellsworth.
Yes. We'll move now to our public forum. This is where members of the public are entitled to speak on matters of municipal concern not on the agenda. Each person's comments shall be limited to 4 minutes. Each person is entitled to speak on any non-agendized item only once at any meeting. Brief questions by council members for clarifications may be posed and answered, and council members may make requests that items be placed on future agendas, but in accordance with state law, no substantive discussion or action may take place unless and until the matter properly appears on the agenda. We have some written submitted comment from Luke Myers in public comment, and I'll look to our city clerk to see if we have public comment from attendees.
There are no raised hands.
Very well, thank you. We'll move now to our reports by staff and city council, future agenda items, and AB 1234 reports. Are there any reports from city staff?
Yes, Mr. Mayor and council members, good evening. We've got a few reports we'd like to give you tonight. First is a report about some success and good news from over the weekend from our fire department and the Fire Department Association in particular. And I'd like to ask the chief maybe just give us a synopsis of the lobster feed. But first, to congratulate him and his new wife, Faxon, a new highlight at the annual lobster feed. So, Chief, can you explain what I'm talking about and maybe give us a highlight?
Yeah, it was an exciting evening. We grossed $387,000 over 14 auction items, and Fund a Need did very well, almost 100,000. And just, it was really something from, most people haven't been to an event that large in a couple years since COVID. So it was really, they were a little too eager at some point to get back to a 500-person event, but it was just well received. Everybody seemed to just love it, and the firefighters really kicked in. Alec Vidler, our fire inspector, did a fantastic job with all the audio visual that you saw in the movie that we played, that played before the Fund a Need. It was just, everything was just right on the money. The firefighters just gave 110%, and it's really great that we have a strong part-time, a lot of local firefighters that grew up here are on the department, and there's over 18 of them. So that it really went well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for the report. And we will move now. I'm seeing Dr. Mitz.
If I could just say one other thing.
Yes, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Chief, you forgot one element of the event.
Oh, the marriage part?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Fax and I were going to we're thinking about eloping, and then maybe a week or two before we said, you know what? Why don't we elope in front of 150 people we know and 350 strangers? So that's what we did, and I've never worn a ring before, but I got one now.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. And we will move now to Dr. Miss.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Just some quick updates on two items. The first is the GO bonds. So the GO bond measure is on the ballot for June, and city staff is still coordinating 2 to 3 open houses that will just be open to the public for them to ask questions and the city provide education back to them regarding the GO bond measure. Additionally, we are underway with our utility rate study. The finance staff has been fast and furious sending information over to Raftellus so they can start digesting the information. It is anticipated at the next council meeting, the first meeting in May. City staff will bring a report back to city council for the ad hoc committee, for the advisory, sorry, not the ad hoc, the advisory committee for the utility rate study. We will be bringing what we did last time in front of city council, seeing if there's any revisions to it. And as soon as we have the go ahead from council, we will release that to the public. And we are hoping and anticipating we'll bring that back to city council the second meeting in May for appointment of an advisory committee. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm seeing Mr. Walsh.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to note for the record that immediately prior to this meeting, the council held a closed session regarding a conference with labor negotiators for discussions between the city and the 3 employee organizations, the Police Officers Association, the St. Helena Employees Association, and the city's unrepresented employees, and there was no reportable action from that closed session. That's all I have to report.
Thank you. And I see Chief Hartley. We have a mute on mute, Chief Hartley.
Sorry about that. Good evening, Mayor Ellsworth and City Council members. As we approach the fire season, I'd like to remind everyone about Zone Haven and the importance of knowing your evacuation zone. During an emergency, any zone identified as needing emergency evacuation will be notified by their zone number. You can find your zone number by going to zonehaven.com and entering your address. It is also accessible through the city's website. St. Helena Police Department continues to work with the Firewise Council and managers of our congregate living facilities to create evacuation routes and work on voluntary evacuation drills. If anybody has any questions regarding emergency evacuations, please contact the St. Helena Police Department. Your safety is our business. Thank you and have a great evening.
Thank you, Chief. And seeing City Manager McCann.
Yeah, one last thing. Our new Director of Recreation started with us yesterday. He's on joining us tonight. I just wanted to give him a chance to introduce himself more broadly to the community. We had a quick introduction when the council approved the employment agreement. I just thought it might be helpful for folks to get to know Mr. Jans and learn a little bit about his background. So if you wouldn't mind, Dave, could you just tell us a little bit about what attracted you to St. Helena and a little bit about your background?
Yeah, thank you, City Manager McCann. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Pleasure to be here in an official capacity this time. Day 2 on the job here, but already have had a chance to meet with a lot of the staff team as well as several members of the community, and so far off to a good start. But just a little bit about myself. So prior to my time with the city of St. Helena, I worked for the city of Healdsburg for the past 5.5 years, where I served as a recreation supervisor and a recreation manager. During that time, I oversaw recreation programs, recreation facilities, aquatics programs, special events, senior services, and arts and culture initiatives over the last 2 years or so. Prior to being with Healdsburg, I worked for the city of Cupertino for about 6 years, where I served as a recreation coordinator and supervisor. During the past 11 years, I've had the chance to work on several long-term planning projects, which includes a parks master plan, a system-wide facilities assessment, and an arts and culture master plan, as well as being the staff liaison for several commissions. All that being said, I recognize that St. Helena is a very unique and special location. Was very much drawn to the close-knit community here and the opportunity to connect with the community members. So looking forward to meeting you all out in the community, as well as the community members themselves, as we look to launch our summer and fall recreation programs. Pleasure to be here.
Mr. Jans, thank you very, very much for being here and saying hello to us, and looking forward to working with you and having you being part of the community.
Thank you.
Okay. If there are no additional reports from staff, do we have any council members with reports at this point? I'm seeing Councilmember Chateau.
Okay, thank you. First, I'll start with the congratulations to our fire chief and Faxon. That was a very exciting wedding and lobster feed. I don't know how you're going to ever top that, but I'm going to think positively and think that so many people are going to want to come next year, because they're not going to want to miss a surprise that might happen. It really was the most unique experience. And congratulations. I wish you all the best. So I wanted to report on 2 important meetings I went to since our last meeting. I had the Upper Valley Waste Management Agency meeting. So I'll do my best to summarize a couple of things that were discussed there. The company did talk about how we might have a rate increase coming up, because like so many other businesses, there are a lot of costs that are rising. They also talked about the Earth Day event that they did in partnership with our city. That was wonderful. We heard about it at our meeting, but that happened on Saturday. That was our big Earth Day activity here in town. We also had a status report on the update for the regulations for the first report or a report for 1383. I learned through looking at the budget that the Upper Valley Waste Management Authority does cover some of the costs that would be something that the city would have to pay for, but right now there's money for it within the agency. So that was great to see. The other item that was of interest in the report is that the company is considering an investment into a biogasification plant for Clover Flat landfill, which would use the woody organics as fuel to create electricity and biochar. But that comes with a $7 million price tag. So that's just a line item in there. They didn't go into detail this time, but of course I'm excited about that because of the consequences for reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. Also, the second meeting I wanted to report on was at our Mapa Climate Action Committee, because we heard from Napa Sands a report from a gentleman, Kevin, who works with the City of Napa. They talked about their biogas plans. They want to do that as well in Napa. It's an even bigger price tag, but the very real, very significant positive impact it would have on our environment was obvious to everybody. And there was a lot of excitement and talk on our countywide committee, just in general, how could we work together to make this happen? Nothing concrete, but I wanted to bring that up. We also talked about the different costs that we've already seen in our budget workshop and there was widespread support from all of the different representatives from all the different cities and county that we should move forward on funding those different items. And that of course will go back to all the different city councils in the county. Two important items that came up to note were that the City of Napa is adding a staff person to work on climate action and environmental. It's actually at the deputy city manager level. That was very exciting. And the City of Calistoga has added a person in the planning department with background with environmental science or technical. So these are 2 new staff positions that are happening in our jurisdiction that'll help us as we all work together countywide.
Thank you. And I had a question on the Upper Valley disposal rate increase. Is there an indication of when that is coming forward and a percentage?
They didn't say anything. There should be more information at our next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Any additional council reports input here? I'm seeing Councilmember Hall.
Thank you. I just, I didn't have any regular routine updates. I just wanted to mention there were some conversations last week about parking in town, and I just was curious, either Jim or Ethan, if there's an opportunity to try to add something to the agenda, our closed session on, I believe it's Thursday of this week. If there's time to do that, and I'm happy, if there is time and we have a little room for that, I'm happy to have a quick phone call either after tonight's meeting or early tomorrow morning, whatever's convenient. If there isn't time for that, then obviously we have a couple of days to chat.
And this is regarding parking?
This is regarding parking and on the PG&E lot specifically.
So if there's an opportunity to have a discussion, I'm certainly in support of that.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that there was a check-in with the council.
Very good. Any additional council input reports at this point?
I do have one other agenda on tonight's agenda, item 13.1. It looks like that's the future meetings. It looks like there's revision 3 to our policy 16 coming to the council at some point here next month. And I just wanted to make sure that there was a chance to, I don't know the scope of that discussion or what's included in that item, but I did have comments and thoughts on sections 3A, B, and C in that policy that I wanted to include somewhere. I could do it that evening if that's the intent. Otherwise, I'm fine writing an email or something and conveying that to staff in the meantime. Yeah.
This is which policy is this?
It looks like it's not really listed in our agenda. It's included under future agenda items 13.1 at the end of our agenda. Looks like a May meeting date.
And which item?
It's the item about the financial policies of the city. It's not really.
I see. I'm seeing it. Yeah.
Numbered there.
Any direction on that, Mr. McCann?
Sure. With respect to both requests, the latter one is really looking at the agenda forecast. We've got a few meetings that we list there with potential items. Those are not yet set. Okay. And so it's just a little forecasting, but we would welcome your questions or comments. And so why don't you get those into us, and that can help us determine whether it's going to be on that agenda or not. And then with respect to the first thought about the PG&E lot, we've had conversation over recent weeks about what role that might play in addressing parking needs in the downtown, and whether the city should entertain exploring acquisition of that property. And that certainly is an item that could be available for closed session. If the council wishes for us to initiate just some exploration, some conversation, we could certainly agendize that. Just want to confirm that with the city attorney. And if that's the case, then if there's interest from other council members, that'd be good to note that, and we can determine when best to bring that forward.
Have we had a initial conversation with PG&E to see if they're at a conversation point, or is this just a discussion amongst council to see what our thoughts are?
It's my understanding that PG&E has indicated some interest in the potential sale of the property. I've not had conversation, but I've heard that from others.
And I'm seeing our city attorney, Mr. Walsh.
Thank you. I just wanted to respond to the city manager's question towards me. The discussion of price and terms of payment for real estate negotiations is appropriate for closed session. So we could agendize that for closed session at the time that you deem appropriate.
Well, that is certainly something I'm supportive of as well, if that's enough to get it moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional input, reports from council? Seeing none, I've got a few items. We have tonight on our consent calendar an item of raising the progress and transgender flags for Pride Month of June. And so hopefully that spirit will extend through the summer, the rest of the year and onward. So that will be coming up in June. On May 7th in Napa is a day of recognition of the benefits of the beaver habitat, the wildfire resiliency from beaver habitat. And that's going to be May 7th at 11 a.m. at Heritage Park in Napa. This benefits our entire watershed beaver activity from American Canyon all the way up to the headwaters above Calistoga. And so that's May 7th, 11 a.m. at Heritage Park in Napa. That's on Pearl, between Coombs and Main Street. Want to encourage folks to learn more about Measure H. That's our infrastructure bond that was supported by the council, all the members of the council. And so Measure H infrastructure bond, the city will be doing some informational, educational meetings on that. And then finally, on Thursday, I'll be attending the WIC, that's the Watershed Information and Conservation Council. Also, the Drought Contingency Group is going to be meeting in conjunction with that. And so we're going to be looking, very proactively at county and regional water situation as we move towards drier months. And we'll be able to report on that after when we get to our next meeting. So with that, we will go to our staff briefings, and this is our wastewater treatment plant construction project update by Eric Jansen, Assistant Public Works Director. Mr. Jansen, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Mayor Ellsworth and members of the council, I'm very pleased to inform you that the wastewater treatment plant project has broken ground. We are moving forward with construction of the sound wall first. This will protect the neighbors from future construction noise and dust and other activities. The sound wall is currently underway. It is about halfway complete. Work is expected to continue into next week. Looking ahead for the next 30 days, we expect that once the sound wall is complete, underground utility work will begin. This will provide power to the new plant. This will also provide plumbing for connecting the new plant to much of our existing plant. Looking ahead about 60 days, once the underground work is completed, we can expect to see a large concrete slab be formed and poured on the site. This will be the home for the new package MBR, or membrane bioreactor, that we have ordered. The MBR has been ordered, but this is a long lead time item with a delivery date in the area of 6 months to a year. And that is what we have for now.
Mr. Jansen, it's just wonderful to hear that. That's a long time coming, a lot of work from council staff, everybody pushing this forward. To hear we've broken ground is just remarkable. So thank you for that. Is there any council question on this item at this point? I'm seeing Councilmember Hall.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo your sentiment, Mayor, to our whole public works team, as well as the council, of course, on getting this project up and moving. It's interesting. If you look at, and Lester, you probably know this better than anyone here, the amount of groundwater versus reclaimed and recycled water in the county, its use. I think only about 3% of it is reclaimed and recycled. And when we have this project done, the city of St. Helena, I think, would be in a position effectively to be reclaiming or recycling about 20% of our water. So that's a big step in the right direction. Should be very, very beneficial, and just looking forward to keeping it full speed ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional council comments? Seeing none, well, once again, thank you, Mr. Jansen and the Public Works Department. Just incredible, incredible work, and then great news to hear. So with that, we will move to our St. Helena Fire Chief John Sorensen and St. Helena Fire Safe Council Representative Chris Warner, who will and they will provide a fire season overview and fire prevention presentation.
Actually, Mr. Mayor, I think we're going to go with our PG&E representative, Mark Van Gorder first, and then we'll get to Mr. Sorensen.
I
Sure
skipped
enough.
over that. And Mr. Van Gorder, we're very pleased to have you here, and I apologize for moving too quickly. All right, can you hear me, Mr. Van Gorder? Yep.
I can. Can you hear my microphone?
Yep.
Terrific. I will get into introductions of the project manager and our customer outreach people in just one moment. I'll check their mics, and now would be a good time for them to, let me just take a look and see if they're coming off of, get their video going. I think you guys may want to mute or take that off, Brian or Arif, if you're not talking, maybe just keep that muted. Really quickly though, first, Mayor and council members, thank you for giving us some time tonight to talk about the gas transmission project. I did briefly want to speak to, since it's come up a couple of times, I think in council meetings, been in the newspaper. The answer to the question, we are absolutely, PG&E is ready to discuss some engagement and acquisition of property for that PG&E lot. So understand there may be closed session discussion that needs to take place, but I'm available to answer any questions as they may come up and work with Manager McCann. Hello again, Jim, good to see you, and congratulations to Mr. Sorensen as well. So that was pretty exciting to hear. Congrats. This may be a bit tricky. I'm getting a text message that maybe Brian Garber is having video challenges or difficulties. I'm going to start sharing a presentation here. If you can let me know that you can see a PowerPoint presentation that I'm putting up for our strength test. Can you see that, Mayor?
Yes.
Okay. It sounds like I'm going to try and introduce both Brian Garber, who's our project manager. Brian, do you have hopefully you have audio?
What, can you hear me?
I
Yes.
can hear you.
Okay, so I have audio, but I don't think you can see me. And I can see you.
That's okay. Oh, excellent. Okay, we can hear you. So Brian, if you just introduce yourself, Brian is a project manager, and Brian, maybe you just basically kind of describe your role.
Yeah, I am the project manager for the Upper Valley PG&E project, which includes the hydro test in St. Helena, the hydro test further north by Dunawheel Lane, and the large pipe replacements that are ongoing along Highway 29.
So Brian really is in tune with the day-to-day, and we'll get into this in a minute, I should say night by night work of this project, and can provide details. I'm getting a text message that maybe this is not being shared as full screen. I apologize. I'm trying to get it to be full screen. What are you seeing? If on my computer it's full screen.
We're seeing the edges with some technical things around the presentation.
Interesting. Okay, well, let me try again. Meanwhile, if I could ask Arif, can you introduce yourself while I try and figure out how to make this a full screen presentation?
Yeah, for sure. My name's Arif Kalik. I'm the customer outreach specialist in Napa County. So I handle customer outreach on large projects like this for gas and electric. And I've been doing the outreach on this since October of last year. And prior to that, it was Michelle Williams. I took over for her.
Okay. Oh, I apologize.
I think it's even smaller now.
If this is not full screen, I may not.
I think it's okay. We can get the gist of it, not full screen.
Yeah, I think, Mark, if you don't have your full show, that's all right. What we're really interested in providing the city council and the community with is just an update on the pipe project, the duration of it, the potential disruption that may occur through town, and the good news that will occur as a result of the project. So just a high level overview is what we're looking for.
Great. So assuming you can see most of the screen, hopefully here, we've got the St. Helena gas pipeline strength test. I'll run through the slides. Brian Garber will talk mostly to some of the highlights you just mentioned, Manager McCann. And then we will also have Arif cover some of the customer outreach that's taken place. We have been talking about this project both in St. Helena and throughout Napa County for the better part of about 3 years. But let me start here. Brian, do you want to take it away?
Absolutely. So the slides here are organized kind of south to north, and we'll present very quickly the individual work zones. Go ahead, Mark. Next slide.
You should see this strength test. Can you see this?
Go to the next slide, please.
I'm moving through the slides. Are they not
We're not
moving?
seeing, yeah, we're not seeing any movement. I don't know if it, you can.
Okay,
see
here,
it.
I'm going to do it.
So
I'm going to
basically,
do
that's fine. Basically, we're going to excavate in 6 locations between Gotts and Pratt Avenue. We're going to replace small sections of the pipeline in order to get the pipe ready to test. The test is filling the line with water, pressurizing it, seeing if it leaks. And in addition to the test, we're installing 2 pipelines on this particular slide between location D and location A underneath Sulphur Creek. The area there at the corner of Mitchell and Highway 29 Main Street is going to be the largest area of activity. That's where the boring machine will be. And we will bore over again in front of Gotts, where there will also be some excavations at that location. As you can see, we're going to be using the parking lot we were talking about earlier as a staging area. Mark, if you want to go to the next location. Next slide, please. And then working our way north, we have 3 locations, Madrona, Elmhurst, and Pratt. At Pratt, that will be the main test location. You will also see some blue tanks staged along the street there. And those are our excavation locations. So go ahead, Mark. Next slide, please. We also have 2 other areas where we'll be working. One is at Fountain Lane, where we already have a laydown yard. We'll continue to use that. And then down further south, you will see us fabricating pipe along the side of the road. And that's so that when we finish the boring, we will pull the pipe in one string underneath the creek. So we'll need some place to fabricate 1,000 feet of pipe. And that's the location that we've permitted through Caltrans. Next slide, please. All right, so we are operating according to Caltrans approved work hours and the City of St. Helena encroachment permit work hours and the City of St. Helena noise permit. Our work hours will be 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. Sunday night through Friday morning. We will have no traffic control during the day. All the excavations will be plated. We will close down Mitchell Lane between Oak and Main Street during the night. And we will close down the sidewalk between Sunshine Market and Mitchell. That'll be closed 24 hours a day. We do have a pedestrian traffic plan to route them around our sidewalk closure. There will be no moratorium. There'll be a moratorium on work 1 day before, during, and 1 day after holiday periods. This includes Bottle Rock weekend, which is coming up. Project is being done under CEQA requirements, and all these documents are available for public viewing on our webpage. And Next slide. So I think I'll turn it over to Arif to talk about the public outreach that we've done overall and currently in progress. Arif?
Sounds good. Thanks, Brian. Yeah, so first we have a website for this project, pge.com/upvalleyproject. You can go on there to see, a map of where we're working, the schedule. You can download the full PowerPoint where we got these slides from to see, this whole project in depth. And then specific to this strength test, on April 6th, I sent a letter to 511 customers from basically like Pratt down to Charter Oak Avenue. I would say about 300 feet on either side of Main Street. And then I actually, to update the canvassing, I've canvassed all of downtown St. Helena now, spoken to most of the businesses down there, explained the work. We've had an on-site meeting with the Southbridge Hotel. Brian and I did on April 12th. They are right across from where we're going to be doing some excavation. And then there's another automated phone call that is going out this week to an even larger set of customers, 783, just saying that, we're going to be mobilizing, and to expect our crews in the area. And that is just, the outreach we've done basically, this year, doesn't include anything that we've done in the past or anything like that for this.
So that's kind of the end of our presentation. Are there questions?
Well, this is really helpful. Want to thank PG&E. This is a very challenging project, but just this work together, sort of seeing the communicative partnership as we work with our community to help everybody understand the need for this aging infrastructure, around the state, around the country. It's here too. And if we stay focused, work together, we can get there together. So this sort of informational update is really helpful in terms of us understanding timeline and impacts, et cetera. And I see Councilmember Hardy.
Thank you. I just had a question about the meeting with Southbridge. I know that Southbridge, unlike I think the majority of the business downtown, would prefer a quiet evening to work at night. So what can you tell me about the outcome of that discussion?
Yeah, we had a meeting. I think it was productive. We, I think when I initially explained it to them, I think I was wrong on the location of the excavation, the main excavation. So when we showed them where it really was, I think they were better about that. And then Brian, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we're going to explore possible sound mitigation and light mitigation for them while we do this work out there. Yeah, I think that's what. Oh.
So this is Brian Garber. We explored putting up a sound wall, but because of the proximity to the railroad tracks that our excavations are, that's not feasible. And so we're going to be looking at the schedule. Their main concern is, of course, over the weekends. We're not working over the weekends. They did indicate that Sunday through Wednesday was best for them. So we're going to try and live together. We'll be meeting. I sent them over basically the same slide that you have in the presentation, and we agreed to meet.
I think we might have lost Mr. Garber.
Brian, are you still there?
I can pick up if he's gone.
Yeah, I think so.
Why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, we agreed to meet with them on a regular basis and to share, like a 2-week look ahead with them, so they, can plan around what we're going to be doing. We're going to try, and I don't know if it's possible, but we're going to try to schedule, the most impactful work, the actual like cutting on of the concrete and the asphalt on the days that that they gave us, that they had lighter customers there, but yeah, beyond that, unfortunately, the only other thing is our claims process if they lose business. So I've provided them with our claims information, and I will help them go through the process of filing a claim should it come to that.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. I appreciate the report on that.
Thank you. Any additional, I'm seeing City Manager McCann.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. Thank you, Mark and your colleagues. I think we've accomplished what we wanted to do, which is just to raise awareness of this. It's a very important project. We want to ensure the integrity of the gas line as it goes through St. Helena. It's tough to do that without making some noise and some disruption. I think PG&E's done a good job of reaching out to folks, letting them know what is coming. They've been open to input and suggestions, so that's great. No doubt there'll be some disruption, but we'll work together. Mr. Van Gorder's here locally, so we'll be able to get in touch with him in the middle of the night to tell him to quiet down things. But I thank you very much for the opportunity to get the update. I think we can move on.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you much.
I seem to be getting an echo here. Let's see. Maybe it's better now. Okay. Very well.
And our next item, Mr. Mayor, our next item is just one to provide an update to the community. Wildfire has been a very significant part of our experience in recent years. Our fire department and all of our departments, for that matter, work hard to prepare to reduce our exposure to fire. But there's just a lot going on. We thought it might be wise to bring the fire chief and some of his partners to a presentation, just to let you know about what we're doing, what we anticipate coming forward, what the community can do, and then an initiative that we'd like to promote to just get some information out with some trusted spokespeople as signatories. And so I'll let the chief introduce this, and there's some other folks who would like to share some thoughts.
Cindy, you're going to share the screen. There we go. All right, I'd like to introduce Chris Warner. He's going to talk about this is a letter from the Fire Safe Council.
Happy to, Chief Sorensen, and again, thank you, Mayor and council members, for having us to help here. We are very much working and coordinating directly with Chief Sorensen, Chief Hartley on these very important wildfire preparation and defense initiatives. As a reminder, the Fire Safe Council is a voluntary organization. I've got my co-leader, Jeff Farmer, also with us tonight. We are fiscally sponsored by the Napa Communities Firewise Foundation. There's a lot going on. And in fact, what we're talking about for this fire season is Chief Sorensen and Chief Hartley have been very good at advising me and helping me along the way. This is not going to be an easy fire season. This is going to be a tough fire season for a couple of reasons. One is that we've got late rains that are going to result in quite a bit of vegetation growth, even where we've done clearing and where people have done defensible space. We're going to have a threat this fire season that may seem to most people contradictory to having a better rainy season, but it's not. And then secondly, we do know that we have obviously complacency and people tend to want to forget about previous fire threats, and they're going to come again this summer. So with the help of Chief Sorensen and Manager McCann and Chief Hartley, we've come up with a letter to go to the community that basically reminds everyone of the importance of defensible space around their homes, their businesses, their properties. And it also provides them useful links to where they can get information from CAL FIRE, from our insurance commissioner, from our FireWise Foundation, and everyone. And this is really a joint effort, which I'm really pleased from the standpoint of the community from St. Helena, joint effort of Chief Sorensen, Chief Hartley, myself, and the mayor to get this information out. You can see on this page what the letter says. By the way, we also are very much coordinating with our social and outreach agencies, particularly COAD, which some of you know is a very important agency, a coalition that helps prepare and advise community members and residents on emergency preparation and evacuation. So that's the letter. I don't know, Chief Sorensen, do you want me to also cover the other initiatives for the year for the fire season from the Fire Safe Council, or do you want to comment and follow up on this letter?
Why don't you go ahead?
Okay, this letter is part of a number of activities that are going forward. And again, the good news, even with a bad fire season, is that with help from Chief Sorensen, Chief Hartley, and the entire city staff, we've got a number of projects and programs that are moving into high gear. You know, obviously, as Chief Hartley mentioned, we on the Fire Safe Council and COAD are supporting evacuation drills, particularly on the east side of the city for vulnerable community members, for those that have mobility issues. We're hoping that will take place in May. We're working with the landlords. We've already had a good example with Vineyard Valley last year. We're going to expand on that. We also, by the way, again, with the help of Chief Sorensen and others, CAL FIRE, we've got a couple of projects on the west side that will result in development of fire breaks that are going to actually be able to provide additional defense along with additional activities down the road by the city to really use the new science of projecting where fires can start and propagate to have additional fire breaks in the near hills on the west side to protect all of our vulnerable residents in the Sylvaner subdivision. This is just a start because there'll be other opportunities in the future for the fire breaks. Obviously, a lot of our community members and residents don't have a lot of funding to do defensible space, to do clearances. You know, even something as minor as rooftop clearance and gutter clearance and clearing brush and flammable plants costs a certain amount of money. I'm here to tell you that soon in May, the Napa Communities FireWise Foundation, with help from CAL FIRE, is going to have a new program of cost sharing available as a pilot in St. Helena and Calistoga to offer up to $2,000 in cost sharing for those residents and property owners that do approved defensible space work in their properties. This is a great start. We're hoping that if it's successful, it can be expanded Napa wide. We obviously, I mentioned, we work with COAD and other social service agencies for outreach and emergency preparedness. They have a model that has proven successful in educating, including getting people aware of their zone haven zones, as Chief Hartley mentioned. And then last, but obviously not least, I just want to make a point about two of our ballot measures, which are so important. This work for fire safety takes money, takes funding that a lot of our jurisdictions and cities and county do not have currently. And that's why I think it's important, without getting into the merits, for everyone to be aware in St. Helena of Measure L, which is the countywide quarter-cent sales tax to fund wildfire prevention projects. And then secondly, there is a relationship between wildfire safety and Measure H. It's really common sense. We, to the extent we can protect and renovate and prepare our water supply system, we can also be sure that it's kept safe from wildfires. So I'll stop there, and I want to be brief. And if any of you have any questions or want to follow up, I'm available all the time. I'm over here on Grayson. I really, again, want thank the city staff, Manager McCann, Mayor, the city council members, the chiefs, and Public Works for really being supportive of everything we are doing in wildfire safety and will continue to do. My final comment, Chief Sorensen, is that although I had a personal conflict Saturday night, hearing about it now, can I make my deposit for next year's lobster feed now? And I don't even ask for a discount. I'll just get that deposit early. Thank you for having us. And again, Jeff Farmer and I are very proud to work with everybody on these wildfire safety initiatives. They are so important. And this is changing the paradigm for all of us so that we are defending in advance ourselves as well as supporting our emergency responders. And again, I can answer any questions or follow up after the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Warner. Are there any questions from council at this point? Chief Sorensen, do you have anything additional to add?
To that, no, I have, there's 3 or 4 more slides I can go through quickly, but Mr. Hall and Ms. Chateau have questions.
Oh, very good. Okay, thank you. I'm not seeing the screen. So please, Councilmember Hall, then Councilmember Chateau.
Thank you. I will defer. I'll follow you. Anna, you were up first.
Oh, thank you. I just had first, thank you, Chris, so much. And Jeff, I mean, it's just incredible to see what you've created with the St. Helena Fire Safe Council. It's an incredible amount of work. And I keep hearing the excitement in the community about how different it is having both of you leading this charge. So thank you very much. I just had a couple questions. Sure. Is this letter going out by mail or email? Because I see the links. I just want to make sure that I tell people that it's coming.
I'll defer to our city clerk and staff on that, or Chief Sorensen.
Cindy?
It can go out through all media platforms.
Okay.
Written and by digital, right, Cindy?
Great. So we're getting everybody. That's good. And we'll encourage people to keep signing up for our emails so they get this important information as we get closer to this bad fire season. That's really important. Also, my other question is just that $2,000 rebate. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be interested in that after hearing about it tonight. Where do we send them for more information about who could get that money and how?
Well, at the usual way of marketing, promoting a great rebate, it's not ready yet. So I'm getting everybody interested in advance, but there will be more information and we will be providing it through, Cindy and the city's channels, as well as Calistoga, as well as all other channels, more details to come. It'll require, as Chief Sorensen, Chief Hartley know, it'll require that everyone who wants the cost share needs to go through the CAL FIRE approved survey of their property and show that they really have enough work to do that's consistent with what's recommended. This is what I call the carrot approach, and Chief Sorensen and I have talked about this. We may need a stick approach eventually. We may need to enforce defensible space, but right now we want to focus on helping people help themselves with this carrot, and hopefully this pilot program, which is, by the way, only St. Helena and Calistoga. It's a pilot. If it proves successful, we're hoping we will get funding and take it countywide.
Thank you.
Thank you. And seeing Councilmember Hall.
Thank you. And thank you, Chief Sorensen, Chris, Jeff, for all the work. It's terrific. I just wanted to follow Councilmember Chateau's comments about the funding support. I think that's very critical. I just think there's sort of two categories of folks. There's obviously, if you look at Sylvaner neighborhood itself, it's actually one of CAL FIRE's high fire hazard districts. Summertime's around the corner, so lots of folks are out barbecuing and having a good time in the yard and enjoying themselves. And there's certain homes there that are remarkably overgrown. They're almost invisible from the street. So I think with the funding program that you're talking about, obviously lots of education would need to go along with it. I'm also thinking maybe there's a broader program, maybe it's already in work with the county, but it's looking at vintners and folks who own some of the broad swaths of land on our hillsides.
Right.
How do we help encourage this as well? $2,000, of course, isn't going
Not
to
gonna
go very
far.
far there. But I'm also thinking if CAL FIRE is going to have specific requirements on, how, do you meet a certain threshold? Not to get into a big bureaucratic mess, but obviously we have a problem with insurance, and that insurance is tied to this specific issue. So if there's a way at every opportunity, we could remind CAL FIRE and our insurance commissioner in the state to get together and make sure that what CAL FIRE is recommending would also help our insurers return to the state in some regard. I think that would be helpful as well.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Hall. You have hit the nail on the head of the interrelatedness of these issues. And, this little cost share program is just a pilot. And I'm going to be delighted if everybody jumps in and we run out of money, because it'll demonstrate to CAL FIRE and the state that we need to take it countywide to everybody. And then, of course, we have already a countywide plan that's going to be expanded for fuel breaks in the hills and for large projects that will create defensible space to prevent the fires from spreading down into the valley. We came pretty close with the glass fire of it spreading into the valley. And so everything we're doing on that countywide plan, which by the way, is also supported by Measure L, is going to be important because that's a lot of vineyards, a lot of vintners. And then finally, the insurance equation is so important. We already have seen the results of people having insurance pulled, not only in the hills, but right here in St. Helena. And we really think that the insurance company is going to have to step up and see what we're doing with home hardening and with defensible space, so that they understand that they can't just evaluate everybody based on some broad generic metric for the entire county. They got to look at people who are doing all this defensible space and give them credit and not take their insurance away. So you hit the nail on the head. These are longer term issues. We're not going to solve them just with, St. Helena's Fire Safe Council. It's going to take everybody in the county, all of you working, but we're very mindful of the insurance equation here, which is important for the future. So thanks for that comment.
Thank you. Additional council comments, and then I'll go back to John. I have one comment I want to make. We still have a problem here with illegal fireworks, and some folks have not gotten the memo yet that that's a past era, that we need to step away from that. Illegal fireworks, one spark in the wrong time in the wrong place can be a horrible disaster for this entire community. So somewhere within our organs of fire prevention and this work through the fire department, Fire Safe Council, helping that message get out there so that the sort of the stragglers on the illegal fireworks issues finally get up to speed.
Agree completely.
So thank you. And I'll go back to Chief Sorensen.
All right. And thanks again, Chris and Jeff, doing a fantastic job. Just love working with you guys. It's really a pleasure. Cindy, you want to share the screen? All right, next slide.
Just 1 second.
Okay, I'm just going to touch real quick. I know you got a big agenda, try to get out of here before midnight. The weed abatement insert is going to be included in the May 15th water bill. So everybody with a water bill, we're going to put it on social media, Facebook and Instagram. We're going to put an ad in the St. Helena Star, public education booth at the farmers market, information campaign with electronic signboards. And then city attorney is working on a new city ordinance to help with non-compliance. I need a little bit more teeth in our ordinance now, and Ethan is working on it, and hopefully we'll have that for this season. So those are all the different ads. Next slide. The Fema Grant is in everybody's mind that live up Big Rock Road, Sarah's Way, up behind Solvaner. This is all the destruction from the glass fire that needs to be cleaned up. This is a $2.4, almost $2.5 million FEMA project that has a 25% cost share with the city. The flood project you can see on the slide on the right. This is the watershed. And then here's some areas of Pratt Avenue near Silverado Trail on the top left. And then the flood project needs a little thinning out. We've had Fish and Game out there to talk about the shrimp beds and the birds and all the different vegetation that can and can't go. So that was very, very productive with them. And everybody wants to know, when are we going to get this grant? Well, this grant's been in for somewhere around 9 months, and they say that it can take 9 months, year and a half. So they are contacting Mandy Kellogg probably every couple of weeks, asking questions. So that's a good sign. It's not on the bottom of the pile. They're working on it. And I think everybody in the country knew about this fire. So it's definitely on somebody's burner. Next slide. Measure L, Chris talked about that. I can't advocate, I can educate, but Chris did a great job bringing up that. But this is right off of the Napa County website. You can just Google Napa County Measure L 2022, and it'll come right up, and you could see everything about it. But it really boils down to 10 million annually that would come in to the county, and all the cities and the county, and this would be a 1/4 cent sales tax for 10 years. Everybody in the unincorporated and all the cities would have a 1/4 cent sales tax. And the Glass Fire After Action Report, about 85% of recommendations have been completed, 15% are scheduled. The California Fire Season Outlook, this first sentence is something new to CAL FIRE, added this, not a maybe, but California continues to experience longer wildfire seasons as a direct result of climate change. Extended dryness originated from January is expected to continue into the spring. We did get a little bit of rain since this was written, but like Chris Warner said, the grass is much taller. With little precipitation, leaving most of the state in moderate or extreme drought conditions prior to summer, these continued dry conditions with above normal temperatures through spring will leave fuel moisture levels lower than normal, increasing the potential for wildland fire activity. I talked to a high-ranking CAL FIRE fire chief, and he said that it would take 7 years of normal precipitation to get back to normal. Next slide. Prevention for here in town and public awareness. Just going to hit that we've inspected all the hotels. El Bonita's missing off of our list here. Public and schools have all been done, public and private. Short-term rentals come in as their permit is on different days throughout the year. They're not all due at the same time from the inception when they started. The business inspections are in progress, projected completion in fall of 22. That's Alec Vidler, our fire inspector. He goes out with myself occasionally and with the engines and performs the inspections. Police department outreach. Chief Hartley has already touched on Zone Haven. And I think I think we have one more slide, Cindy. And a slideshow. So if anybody has any questions, you can catch me if you want me to come back and talk to something a little in depth. Those are some huge subjects to just touch on in 3 or 4 minutes. So.
Well, thank you, Chief, very much. And I'm seeing Chris Warner with a hand up.
Yeah, and I just want to comment on the FEMA grant because I've worked also as a board member of the Napa Community Firewise Foundation and on the community wildfire protection plan we have approved by the county. That FEMA grant set of projects that the chief has worked on, all of you worked on, and Mandy Kellogg, is a superb menu for not only overall wildfire prevention in the future with projects that include fire breaks and cleaning up the river and the creeks, but it's a great menu for every other jurisdiction in the county and also a great menu for the future. So my big kudos to that FEMA grant. Let's hope we get it. But the work that's gone into that menu of projects has been superb. I just want to compliment everybody that's worked on that.
Thank you. And I'm seeing Jeff Farmer coming on here.
Yeah, I just want to mention I guess a relatively small success, but it is a success. There is a plot of city-owned land behind Hunts Grove and just north of Vineyard Valley, which had been untouched for many, many years. It has now been cleared out thanks to Public Works, Chief Sorensen and Chief Hartley coordinating to get that done. It's pretty much all cleared out. All the rubbish and detritus is in 2 or 3 piles back there, and that's all going to be removed this week. So it's a small success, but as Neil Armstrong said, one small step for man.
That's really tremendous news, and really great to hear the group effort working to get that done. That had been on the radar for a while, so really great to hear that moving forward. And thanks for reporting on that. So I'll go back now to see if the chief and Chris Warner have any final comments, or if there are any final comments from council here.
None from me. Just let's keep up the good work. And again, Chief Hartley and I talked about this at lunchtime. These messages on wildfire safety and defensible space need to be repeated over and over and over again. This is not one and done. This is something that needs to be provided through all of your contacts with everybody in the community. And you need to keep telling them they have to protect themselves. They have to prepare for wildfires, and they have to do defensible space. And I know the two chiefs will agree with me on that, and Jeff as well, because people forget. So I just want to reinforce that we may want to come back in midsummer or mid-fire season with a little update on where we are for you, but everything you can do as well. It's very commonsensical. So thanks for having us.
Thank you. And we'll keep the messaging and the work going. Okay, very good. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chief Chris Warner. Thank you, Jeff Farmer. And we'll move on now to our 8.3. This is our Monarch and Pollinator Month, May 2022 Proclamation, St. Helena, from St. Helena. And this is going to be presented to Erin Arnsteen from the Western Monarch Society of Napa County. Erin, are you with us at this point?
Yes, I am.
I'm going to read the proclamation. If you have a few words afterwards, that would be wonderful.
Sure.
This is the City of St. Helena Proclamation, Monarch and Pollinator Awareness Month, May 2022. More than 85% of flowering plants on Earth, including wild and cultivated species, require the assistance of animal pollinators in order to produce seeds. And pollinators will play a vital role in maintaining a healthy ecosystem. Local plant species, wildlife, and urban agriculture all depend on pollination from bees, butterflies, and other animals. And globally, pollinators are in great decline due to pressures, including habitat loss, climate change, and increased use of pesticides. And the Western monarch butterfly is an iconic North American species whose multi-generational migration and metamorphosis from caterpillar to butterfly has captured the imagination of millions of Americans. And the Western monarch butterfly population has been reduced by 95% since the 1980s, with only 247,000 migratory Western monarch butterflies counted in January 22nd, 2022. And the Xerces Society has declared Napa County a Priority 1 action zone in the conservation of Western monarch butterflies. And St. Helena is home to many native pollinator species, such as birds, bats, and insects, which keep our environment healthy and biodiverse. And St. Helena recognizes that human health ultimately depends on well-functioning ecosystems, and that biodiverse regions can better support food production, healthy soil and air quality, and can foster healthy connections between humans and wildlife. And every resident in St. Helena can help make a difference for the Western monarch butterfly and other native pollinators by planting native host plants. The Western Monarch Society of Napa County will give out a limited number of native milkweed plants to community members in the spring of 2022. And St. Helena will continue to support local, state, and national efforts that protect, restore, and conserve habitat for pollinators. Cities, towns, and counties have a critical role to play to help save the monarch butterfly and other native pollinators, and St. Helena is striving to become a leader. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Jeff Ellsworth, Mayor of St. Helena, and the City Council members of the City of St. Helena do hereby proclaim the month of May as Monarch and Pollinator Awareness Month in the City of St. Helena, and encourages all residents to participate in community activities that support and celebrate monarch and pollinator protection and conservation, especially planting native milkweed and other native nectar flowers in pesticide-free zones on their properties. April 26, 2022. Jeff Ellsworth, Mayor, St. Helena, and I am going to hand this over to Ms. Arnstein.
Great. So thank you so much, Mayor Ellsworth, City Council members, and Cindy, our wonderful City Clerk. I'm Erin Arnsteen. I'm the co-founder of the Western Monarch Society of Napa County, and I'm honored to be here representing my fellow co-founders, David Garden Jr. and Jess Arnsteen. So our main goal is to rebuild habitat for native pollinators by giving away native host and nectar plants and by connecting landowners to opportunities for habitat restoration. And having municipal support by our city recognizing the importance of pollinators and the dire state of the Western monarch butterfly for a second year in a row is a huge step in helping us with some of the bigger underlying issues that pollinators face, such as habitat loss and pesticide risk management. So it also gives us a platform to raise awareness in a lot of fun ways. So last year we grew and gave away 6,000 free native drought tolerant host and nectar plants to community members around Napa County, including larger habitat restoration projects in vineyards and at wineries. We partnered with the Napa Resource Conservation District to apply for grants for larger habitat restoration projects through national organizations such as the Xerces Society, Monarch Joint Venture, and the U.S. Forest Service. And now a lot of those projects are part of the Monarch Joint Venture's integrated monarch monitoring program, which is actively providing data to scientists here in the Napa Valley to help with the conservation of monarch butterflies. This year, we've partnered with several other landowners, vineyard managers, and local businesses and organizations to apply for more plants to rebuild more habitat here in the Valley. We also partnered with the Xerces Society to help us develop some really great best management practices for host plants and nectar plants in and around vineyards. And then this year, in the month of May, the Western Monarch Society will be giving away more native milkweed plants to our community members for free. And our first stop will be at the St. Helena Farmers Market, the first day, May 6th, Friday. And the only thing that we ask in return for our plants is that people take a pledge to take care of the plants and that they map their plantings, their milkweed plantings, on the Monarch Milkweed Mapper through the Xerces Society, which is a great way for scientists to track the migratory routes of the monarch butterfly. We're also working on educating local nurseries on carrying more pesticide-free native plants, and we developed an exchange program where we give our native host plants to the nurseries in exchange for tropical species that are less helpful to hosting caterpillars. In addition, the Western Monarch Society is doing this great work, but there's also these other community members who I wanted to mention really quick, who are kind of rallying together to create some really great awareness, pollinator-themed awareness programs. So to name a few, the St. Helena Farmers Market, their theme this year is Napa Valley Native Bees, and their classroom art competition that they did this year was Native Bees Please. And it was all about to educate the importance of not only the European honeybee that we all know, but the 1,600 other native bee species in the state of California. So there's quite a lot of other bees, native bees to our area as well. So please visit the farmers market and support their great programming by purchasing. They have beautiful native bee t-shirts designed by Andrea Cazares, a local artist at Nimbus Arts, or purchasing the merchandise they have with the winning design from the Native Bees Please competition. Or also checking out Cinema Bites at Cameo Theater with Kathy Buck, another great conservation supporter in our community. Western Monarch Society will also be giving away plants during the RCD's Garden Month in May on Saturdays throughout the Napa Valley, and also at their Dia de la Familia in July. So you can visit their website, naparcd.org, or the Western Monarch Society website, which is westernmonarchs.org, to see those dates once they're finalized. And then later this season, we'll be giving away more plants at Nimbus Arts as they host some really great pollinator art awareness activities, and they launched the opening of their new pollinator garden behind their art studios. You can learn more about those activities at nimbusarts.org. And then I'll be giving a talk at the farmers market on native bee diversity and gardening for native bees on July 22nd. If you'd like to join me and hear me nerd out about insects, I will be there. So all of these are really great, fun things that we can do to be more aware about pollinators and the Western monarch butterfly. But really the most crucial thing we can all do is plant more native drought tolerant host plants and nectar plants. And we will be available again this year to give out some more of those plants to our community. So I look forward to seeing you all in May. Again, you can visit us at westernmonarchs.org, or you can email me directly if you have any questions. It's westernmonarchsociety@gmail.com. And that's it. Thank you guys so much. I'm really excited to hear all of the wonderful environmental and conservation work you are all doing. So thank you so much. And the defensible space information from you guys, I just really appreciate all of that work that you're doing. And if you want any information on some really great fire resistant native plants, I can help with that, so we should connect. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Really appreciate the presentation. Any comments for council before we move forward, or from council? Seeing none, I'll say thank you very much to Ms. Arnsteen, and we appreciate it, and we'll keep working together on this.
Sounds great. Thank you, Mayor Ellsworth.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we'll move forward to our consent calendar. And this is where members of the council or the public may ask that an item be removed, considered individually for purposes of considering alternative action for extended discussion or for public comment. Unless that is done, one motion may be used to adopt all recommended actions. My understanding is that we're going to pull item 9.6. I'll read through the rest of the items and look to see if council or the community wants to pull another item. So we'll start at 9.1, 9.2, 9.3, 9.4, 9.5, and we'll be pulling 9.6, 9.7, and 9.8. I'm seeing no hands. I'll look to our city clerk.
There are no hands raised.
No hands. So with that, I would then entertain a motion to pass the consent calendar with the exception of item 9.6.
I'll move approval of the consent calendar without 9.6.
I'll second.
Councilmember Chateau,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Lester, Hardy.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Doring,
Yes.
Mayor Ellsworth.
Yes. And so now we'll go to item 9.6, and I believe Dr. Mitz or Ms. Kellogg, are you, I'm not quite sure who's going to present or give us some information here.
It will be me, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I just wanted to quickly just pull this item and just point the attention to some really exciting grants that we actually have been awarded, or we've received a conditional award of the grant. In particular, the first item that you'll see under the newly awarded grants is the Child Care Scholarship Program. The city was partnering with Community Resources for Children. They got a very sizable, large grant from the state. And so that money, that $71,000, is actually going to be pushed over into the utility assistance. So we are able to provide $271,000 of utility assistance to low-income families, and that program is being run through Up Valley Centers. The other really exciting one that we applied for was just shy of $500,000, and it's for community wellness and mental health program. The city is partnering with Aldea, and we are in active conversations with them on how to roll out that program. We do have this grant has been conditionally awarded, which means we got a conditional award letter. They have a couple clarifying questions, and so Mandy has actively been working with them. And currently, that application is under final review with HCD. So it is looking very promising that will go through. The next few items for the minor decoy, the shoulder tap program, that one is currently in place right now. The funding for the school resource officer was effective December 1st of this year, or sorry, 2021. So that is an active grant that we're excited that it was awarded. For the funding to replace the Crane Park playground equipment, city staff, both Assistant Admin Services Director Kellogg, as well as Martine Beltran in Public Works, are working to prepare an RFP right now for that, as well as submitting the CEQA documents to the county. And then the final is the relief for water arrears. So these are water customers who were behind on their payments. And this is going to be, everybody had already been pre-approved for this. It is going to be applied directly to their utility billing account. The city did have to work with our software system, but our software system provider, but that should actually be done by the end of this week. So we're really excited about those grant opportunities. Some of the pending ones in particular was already mentioned during the fire presentation is a $1.86 million grant. So it has already passed review by Cal OES, and it is currently with FEMA for review. So that was it. I just wanted to provide some really highlights on some great grants that the city is getting to really, really help the community. Thank you.
Good work. Congratulations. Yeah. Good work.
Really excellent.
I give kudos to Mandy. She's done a lot.
We are really fortunate both having Dr. Mitz and Mandy Kellogg here focusing on these issues and really bringing these forward. So thanks for sharing that. I think it was important for folks to know and see how these grants, when we're proactive about them, can really start coming in and benefiting the city. So thank you. Any council comment, additional council comments?
I'll move approval of 9.6.
Vice Mayor, I'm going to take public comment just to see if there's any comment on it, and then come back.
Understood. Let's move.
There are no hands raised.
Very good. And we'll come back, and I believe the Vice Mayor made a motion on this.
Yep.
And a roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Doring?
Yes.
Councilmember Hardy? Councilmember Hardy?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Buteau?
Yes.
Mayor Ellsworth?
Yes. Okay, so that is our consent calendar. We'll move forward we'll go past item 10.1. That's going to be continued or that's not going to be heard at this meeting. And we'll move to old business 11.1. This is discussion and proposed approval of a resolution rescinding resolution 2019-66 and amending policy PCC001, outdoor display of governmental and non-governmental flags on city property. And this is prepared by Ms. Jafopoulos, our city clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. At the September 28th City Council meeting, staff was directed to bring the outdoor flag display policy back for discussion and direction related to the POW MIA flag. Given the need to amend the policy to address the POW MIA flag and the duration of it to be flown, staff also made additional recommendations to the policy, which is regarding how we administratively process the flag request, and we are requesting that it be similar how we handled the City of St. Helena's banner permit process. It's all done administratively. So staff is recommending adopting a resolution rescinding resolution 2019-66 and amending the policy for outdoor display of governmental and commemorative or other governmental flags on city property. Staff is also requesting direction on which flagpole the POW MIA flag will be flown, either on the governmental flag below the United States flag, or it will fly on the ceremonial flag pole. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer.
Thank you. Any council comment or question here at this point? I'm seeing none. One of the questions that came up for me is wanting to make sure that we've got a process by which if in a sense, an inappropriate flag comes forward, there's a process that staff has some tools to look at what comes in. And in my conversations with Mr. McCann, using our city vision statement, using our city, the tools of the city's sort of ethics and values policies, we can use that as a screening mechanism to make sure that what is brought in and deemed appropriate, consistent with the city. And that's my understanding.
And I included that in the policy as well, so it's spelled out.
Very good. Any council comment before I open public comment? Seeing none, we will open public comment, see if there are any hands.
There are none.
Seeing none, we'll bring back to the council and seeing if there's comment, and if not, would invite a motion.
Councilmember Hall has his hand
Oh.
raised.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Thank
For
you,
some reason,
Cindy.
I'm not getting the screen. Thank you.
Just if we're adopting this as written, there's a couple of typos. I don't know if you noticed that. Just in the upper right-hand corner where it says policy, outdoor display of governmental and commemorative or other governmental flags on city property, and that's repeated throughout the document. Anywhere that shows up, certainly under section 1. The other question I had is under section 3, flying flags on city property at half-staff. Are national flags, California flags, and city flags, are those the same as governmental flags? Is that what we mean? Okay. Can we, if we're gonna do another just clean up, can we just clean it up so it's consistent? And question back to city clerk with regard to which pole does the POW MIA flag fly? My understanding was it's not the ceremonial pole, it's the regular flag pole. And that's what I understand the requirements or recommendations are coming from the Veterans Administration, who established the policies to begin with. And I'm not sure, Ethan, if you had a chance to dig into that and look through it. If so, it'd be great to hear your comment.
I have, and the requirement for the federal government, which is the requirement which we're trying to follow, is that if it flies on the same flag as the U.S. flag, it's required to be beneath the U.S. flag and of an equal or smaller size than the U.S. flag, or in the alternative, it can be flown on a separate flagpole to the right of the primary flagpole. And again, has to be lower than or and either of the same size or smaller than the national flag.
Okay.
So we can do either or, essentially.
Okay. So the request from the community was to put it on the main flagpole. This is written on a ceremonial. I'm just curious how we ended up that way, if both options look like they're appropriate.
When the staff report was written, we weren't aware that it could be flown under the United States flag. But since then, we have consulted with Ethan and found out that we could.
Okay. Well, all in favor of the main pole, I guess. I don't know how we, the original request was to do it that way. I think somebody had researched it at some point in time, and I think they're interested in having it under the Stars and Stripe as a smaller flag on the main pole.
I'm supportive of that.
It would change the language here relative to how often it's flown, where it says, when some other commemorative flag is not flying on the ceremonial pole, then this would fly. Anyway, I'm just curious. I'm just raising the issues.
I see what that if.
Yeah, item, whatever it is, 3 there that's modified.
So if if this is flying on the main flagpole, then it wouldn't not necessarily need to come down if there was something on the ceremonial pole.
That's correct. The ceremonial flags could fly longer or at the city manager's discretion, I think. Is what I'm saying. There doesn't look like there's any language here about length of time on any flags.
So I'm supportive of it being on the main pole as well. Any other council comments? And then it looks like we would just have to clean up a little bit of the language. I'm seeing Mr. Walsh.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just say that my recommendation, you're right, it's not a significant change, but I do think it would take a bit of drafting to make sure that we got it right. So if that is the direction the council wants to go, my recommendation would be that that you direct staff to make that change, and then we could bring it back at a subsequent meeting, put it on consent.
Okay.
Does that, I'm supportive of that. Is that what you need to go forward? To bring?
Thank you.
Okay, very good. And so in terms of sorry, if I can get we're just giving direction here. I'm sorry. Let me just go back to our.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Mayor, we were looking to have action tonight, but direction will work, and we'll come back and put it on consent. If other council members, if you all agree with Mr. Hall's suggestion that we modify this so that the MIA POW flag will be flown on our main pole below the U.S. flag, then that's fine, and we can modify it in such a fashion and bring it back to you. Are there any objections to that?
No.
Nope.
Okay, so we've got that direction. Thank you very much. Thank you for bringing this forward. I want to make one other mention, not directly related to this, but certainly touching on the flagpole issues. You know, we have lost so many important, wonderful community members over the last number of years, really who've given so much to this place. We can't recognize them all, at one, as it happens, particularly with the pandemic. But I do think consideration of some type of a special day of lowering the flag to half mast, where we celebrate all that have passed in a certain amount of time, because I think we need to be able to recognize and thank and express the gratitude for all that has been given. So it's just something to think about as we think about our flagpoles and how we may be able to do something where we can have something ongoing that we recognize those who have helped build and sustain this community. So with that thought, we'll move now to our next item. This is 11.2, in-person city council boards, commissions, and committee meetings discussion. And this is also our city clerk, Ms. Chafopoulos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council. So as you all know, we have been meeting virtually since March of 2020. And I just want to note, when the governor ends the emergency, all city council boards, commissions, and committee meetings must immediately resume to in-person with pre-pandemic requirements, which I also provided those in my staff report. In anticipation of the emergency order being lifted and pursuant to city council requests, staff is presenting the following items for the city council discussion and direction regarding continued virtual or in-person meetings. So I provided 3 scenarios for discussion. Scenario 1 would be, we would just completely go back to in-person pre-pandemic format with everyone being present. Scenario 2 would be a hybrid approach, which we would continue meeting in person, but also bring in consultants and or the public virtually. And the scenario 3, which would be, we would go all back in person pre-pandemic. However, we would give the option for consultants and or staff to join us virtually. So I just want to point out there's many moving parts to managing a meeting, and especially bringing in technology, additional technology. As we witnessed this evening with the PG&E presentation, there was a little bit of hiccups there, and with my prior meeting with trying to bring someone in by phone reservation. So staff is actually recommending to the City Council to consider scenario 3. This is identical to scenario 2, but consultants and staff would be participating virtually. If consultants are able to join virtually, this is going to be a considerable cost savings to the city relating to their travel costs. So staff is seeking City Council discussion and direction and recommends approving scenario 3. I'm requesting the City Council to allow me, if chosen to go that route, allow me a minimum of 30 days to get the technology in place and ready and work with Napa TV, and then provide instructions to staff and holding mock meetings to work out any wrinkles that we may have. So I'm here if you have any questions.
My first question, and we'll go to the council here, but Mike, in terms of transition time, what time amount of time are you thinking this is going to take for us as a city to get back into whatever mode we choose here?
So there's two ways to look at it. When the governor ends the emergency, we would immediately go back into in-person meeting. In the interim, I'm asking for a minimum of 30 days. I have an encoder that we're trying to get online in the AV room. I would have to give come up with instructions, and I would have to train staff to whatever scenario we go with. There's going to be training involved, and again, I also want to do some mock meetings just to make sure we have everything down pat and we have technology ready and functioning.
Very good. Council input at this point? Questions, thoughts? Councilmember Hall?
Thank you. I think whatever makes Cindy's job easiest and complies legally, I'm all for. So either 2 or 3, whichever makes most sense.
Additional council input? Seeing none.
Now, something I didn't mention is potentially if council desires to stay in the Zoom environment until the governor ends the emergency, that is also something that you can discuss.
To do what? I'm sorry.
If council wants to stay virtual in this environment until the governor ends the emergency, I mean, that's also something you could do.
But does that give you transition time when he does end the emergency?
I am currently working on getting the encoder going. We could meet, we just wouldn't be able to live stream.
Okay. Councilmember Hardy. Oh, yeah, and then I'm gonna, if I may, Councilmember Hardy, see if City Attorney Walsh has something to interject here that may be pertinent, if that's okay with you, Councilmember Hardy. Thank you.
I just wanted to add that the other fact is, in addition to the governor's executive order declaring a state of, or not his executive order, excuse me, the declaration of the state of emergency. There's also, if the county health officer were to lift her direction that we hold meetings remotely and maintain certain kind of social distancing measures, that would also create a need to go back in a more immediate fashion.
Thank you. Councilmember Hardy.
Thank you. I'm in favor of moving forward with option 3 as proposed.
Additional, I'm seeing Councilmember Chateau and then Vice Mayor Doring.
I support 3 too, hearing about all of the staff, how hard it is to go back. I think that makes the most sense to do 3 instead of 2 at this point.
Thank you. And Vice Mayor Doring.
You know, practically speaking, I am suffering from Zoom fatigue. And
we are losing a fair amount of interaction and transparency when we are not having folks in person. There's definitely a drop off in communication, and the city, I believe, is suffering from it. And so I like the fact that it's within the manager's discretion, but I would try to encourage us to try, to look at each case one by one. And if there's certain times where it's just not working on Zoom. We've had a couple of instances of late that are very painful to go through, very time consuming. I would encourage people to come. I obviously understand the economic benefit, and there are times when staff needs to be away. I see that on a case by case scenario, but I would want it to be sort of the rare occasion that happens, in my personal view, and that's where I am. But I'm willing to try scenario number 3 with that caveat. Thank you.
Thank you. And so that looks like where we're landing in support of option 3. One of the things that we did discover through Zoom, through the pandemic, one of the silver linings, whatnot, was the reduced travel time, reduced travel impacts, less driving, less. So there may be some benefits to looking at this hybridized model. Certainly want it to be something that works for staff. This seems a way to move back towards in-person meetings in a measured way. So I'd be in support of measure 3 or scenario 3 as well. I'm gonna, it looks like we've got support on the council. Did I open this up to public comment yet, Cindy? So I'll do that now and see if we have any input.
There are no raised hands.
Okay, very good. So we'll bring it back to the council, and oops, sorry, I'm looking at the staff report.
So staff anticipates the first meeting to go live would be for Maya, for the first planning commission meeting in June. That's what I'm shooting for.
Okay, and so do we need a motion here? I'm seeing just discussion and direction.
Yeah,
Correct,
I think
Mr.
just
Mayor.
direction. There's no resolution or anything. I think we've got the direction from you all to proceed as quickly as we can and pursue option 3, and we will do so. We'll let you know when our first in-person meeting is. You'll be invited.
Very good. Thank you. And thank you, Cindy, for all the work through this entire challenging couple of years and managing this through this Zoom environment and now this transition. So thank you for keeping this rolling. Okay, we'll move now. This is item 11.3. This is discussion and direction regarding criteria to be considered in selection of mayor if Measure G is approved by the voters. And this again is our city clerk, Cindy Jafopoulos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. So I'm just going to go back in time. On November 2nd, 1976, the voters of St. Helena passed Measure G, moving from an appointed mayor to an elected mayor. 46 years later, the City Council placed again Measure G, interesting enough, on the June 7th, 2022 statewide direct primary election for the voters to consider an appointed mayor. If Measure G passes, the new system of governance will not start until after the November 8, 2022 general municipal election, after which the mayor would be selected per criteria developed by the City Council. Staff has provided 7 sample policies for the selection of mayor and vice mayor from other jurisdictions to highlight different selection criteria used in those jurisdictions. Staff recommends City Council establish an ad hoc committee of 2 council members to work with the city clerk, city attorney, and the city manager to develop a draft policy for council consideration. It is anticipated the draft policy will be presented to the City Council for discussion at least one time before the June 7th, 2022 election. If Measure G is approved by the voters, the final policy will be brought before the City Council for adoption prior to the November 2022 election. And I'm here for any questions.
Thank you. Is there a council comment or input here? So, I'm seeing Councilmember Hardy.
Yes, I'd like to recommend Councilmember Hall for the committee.
So do we want to discuss a little bit about what we're doing as well as appointing folks to discuss? This is something I'd be interested in being on, but I can defer as well. You know, just to give a little perspective in terms of this job, something that I learned from Mayor Canning, who I don't always politically agree with, but his experience as mayor helped me understand what's necessary for the job. And so the process that we're going to be looking at, I do think needs to include a few things for folks understanding the difference for me as I moved from council to the mayor position and after meeting with Mayor Canning was the need, the willingness to, in certain circumstances, make sure to be sitting in the chair and not moving, particularly in situations of emergency, whatnot. I think that there's a perspective to be gained from being in the chair and in terms of looking at how we set up a system. Certainly open to looking at all the different ways we do this. Any thoughts here? If there's anything from any one of these cities that looked like the model we may want to use or hybridize from?
The city of Oakley seems to have a nice policy.
So if, and one of my other thoughts too was that we know the ballots go out in early May. So this is something that I think the committee would want to work fairly quickly on. Is that something, Councilmember Hall, that you would be willing to work with me on over the next couple of weeks here before the next meeting?
I'm certainly willing to work on it. I don't know what the rush is for it, though. If I recall our last meeting, we actually commented that we don't know if this will pass. If it does, we still have 5 months of time to study it and bring it back to the council. So I think we said that we would agree to talk about it here and look at it. But I think that was the gist of it. I didn't see it as we would need a system in place before June. I don't know if that was the intent or not. I didn't hear it that way. I didn't read it that way.
Well, my perspective on it is that the ballots will go out in early May, and at that point, people will be making a vote. It's like understanding what you're buying. You know, if you're buying a car, what's under the hood? What is the mechanism we're looking at, so that when people vote, they know what it is they're voting for. That was my understanding or reasoning for wanting to be out at the beginning of when ballots go out. It is the difference in the last couple of years with them all mail in, is that the things are moved forward really a month in terms of the vote starting. So that was my feeling why it was important. Councilmember Hardy.
Yes. Well, my inclination is to agree with Councilmember Hall. I think the inevitable consequence of rushing into a policy part of the election is then the policy discussion itself becomes part of the campaign. I think that before there's an irrevocable decision, and really there isn't an irrevocable decision possible. I think it's all much simpler and in the end better to see whether the voters are interested in making the change or not, and if they are, then deciding on how we wish to implement it.
Okay, I mean, for me, I'd be more interested in bringing it forward early, but I can understand in terms of thinking not rushing policy. When we rush, we can make mistakes, et cetera. So I would be I would accept that it would be presented before the election. That may give us a few extra weeks. Is that acceptable, Councilmember Hall?
Yes, that absolutely works for me.
Okay, and we can find a time to sort of go through or how we're going to approach this. One aspect too, I do want to look at, because we talk about the mayor rotation, and there is an element of how this would tie in, and some of the sort of protocol laid out here looks at some of the code of ethics issues or things like that. And I think there may be some need to look at our code of ethics for some clarification as it relates to the mayor, vice mayor, potential conflicts, et cetera. It may tie in. I've seen a little bit of reference in here. So maybe that's something we can look at as we discuss this. So with that, if there's no council, I'm seeing City Clerk Cindy.
So I'm just curious, are you going to go ahead and appoint 2 folks to work with staff at a later date?
I was thinking we would do it tonight. Mr. McCann, am I saying?
Yes. Our preference would be to establish that ad hoc group. So if you can find 2 council members who'd like to work with the city attorney and with me, that would be great. And we could work on this, and when it's ready, bring it back to council.
That sounds great. So if I do want to get public comment here and see if there's any public comment, and then we'll come back and finalize where we're at.
There are no raised hands.
Mr. Mayor, could you explain what you mean by the conflict between the mayor and the vice mayor? I'm not sure I follow that.
Oh,
and that's kind of got my attention, obviously.
Well, it wasn't meant to be related to specifically the mayor and the vice mayor, but the process of which, if there are any conflicts or concerns, how it goes through the system with a rotational system as opposed to the elected system. It wasn't no relation necessarily to our city. It's just if there's a process that is in a rotational system for dealing with those types of things, is it different than in an elected system? I just think in some of at least in one of the examples here, there was some reference to it. I just think it needs to be part of the discussion so that we can see what we have, and if what we have, and frankly, I do have some concerns with what we have doesn't have a contingency for internal conflict. And what I'm wondering is if in one of these models, there is something we can look at that's already been established.
I'm not sure I understand your point, but we can certainly look at it. I would also just point out that we're not embarking on a rotational system. It is not a rotational system that we're asking the voters to vote on. I think we don't want to confuse the voters. It is council members selecting a mayor. It's not rotational in the way I understand the word rotational. Maybe you have a different idea. So I just want to make sure that's clear.
Yeah, the way I understand it is that system for selecting the mayor may include a rotational approach, but is not necessarily a rotational approach.
Correct.
Mr. McCann.
Right, and I think that's correct. The approach and the criteria, if any, have not yet been developed. The idea is this ad hoc group will work on those. And so the 4 of us will work on those. We've identified a handful of options from around the state that sort of range from really no help whatsoever to some that do have some prescribed processes and criteria. So that's what we'll do. The other thing I just wanted to clarify is that the effort is not focused on the code of ethics, looking at revision to that document. There may be interest in revisiting the code of ethics, but that's not part of what this agenda item speaks to.
Very good, thank you. I had just seen a reference in some of the models to that. So I just wanted to make that as a note that as we look at a different system, is there a different thing that needs to be looked at? And I can sort of isolate that as we get into our working group and try to show you what my concern was. So if the council's comfortable with Councilmember Hall and myself working with the city manager and the clerk, can we get the nods for that to move forward? And I'm seeing the support, and then I'm looking at city manager, or I'm sorry, city attorney Walsh.
Thank you, Mayor. I do think it merits a motion and a vote just to actually appoint the subcommittee.
Thank you. So if we have a motion to appoint, I'm seeing Councilmember Hardy.
Yes, I move that we appoint Councilmember Hall and Mayor Ellsworth to the ad hoc committee on the possible mayoral selection process.
And
I'll
a
second.
And a roll call, please.
Councilmember Hardy,
Yes.
Toe,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Doreen,
Yes.
Mayor Ellsworth.
Yes, thank you. Okay, we'll keep working down here and move to our final item, and this is our item 12.1, our formula business zoning policy discussion, and this is prepared by Maya DeRosa, our planning and building director.
Hello, good evening, Mayor and council members. I have a slide deck that summarizes some of the talking points we'll go through tonight that will help facilitate our discussion, and also just summarizes some of the things that are in your staff report and attachments as well. Thank you, Ms. City Clerk. Next slide, please. So similar to our last discussion item at the meeting before, where we were talking about parking, we are also having a policy discussion tonight to provide feedback to staff regarding whether changes should be made to the current formula business regulations as part of our overall comprehensive zoning code update. This item, like the parking item, was also discussed by the zoning code subcommittee on February 9th, 2022, and recommended this topic be taken to the council before we make any changes to our draft public review document. And as you may recall, on August 24th, 2021, the City Council discussed this topic as part of the economic strategy for the downtown. And there were recommendations in that discussion to, one of them was to define a formula business related to maximum number of locations and to look at various ways to relax our currently restrictive regulations. Next slide, please. So just to familiarize everybody what our current zoning code regulations are related to formula businesses. Formula restaurants are prohibited in this city, throughout the city and all zoning districts. Formula retail requires a use permit approval by the Planning Commission. And formula retail may be granted a temporary use permit, which is a staff approval, and they may operate for up to 90 days. And just on a side note, to date, we have had no formula businesses utilize our temporary use permit application. Next slide. And there's a lot of really good material in our general plan, most of it coming from the economic sustainability element related to what policies we should be set that trickle down into our zoning code related to formula businesses. And there was a particularly interesting salient statement that preceded the policies on page 3.5 that I thought was worth, really highlighting, because I think it encapsulates at least the sentiment during the time of the general plan preparation. And that statement is, as read here, outreach efforts have indicated broad support in the community for maintaining the city's existing prohibition of formula restaurants outlet, and chain stores, and large-scale retail businesses to ensure that St. Helena's businesses continue to complement its distinctive small-town character. And then one of the policies I wanted to highlight, there are multiple ones that are included as an attachment to the staff report, but implementation action ES 1.B states, update the municipal code to encourage, to the extent feasible, businesses that are complementary to St. Helena's small town character and that provide a range of goods to local residents. B, define and permit non-chain discount type stores while maintaining the existing provisions in the municipal code that prohibit formula restaurants, outlet and chain discount type stores, and retail businesses over 10,000 square feet in size. And C, limit certain non-retail uses such as real estate offices from occupying ground floor retail space in central St. Helena. And as mentioned, there's a host of other policies. We actually have made some of these changes already in the zoning code updates, such as not allowing real estate offices on the ground floor, just as a FYI. Next slide, please. And so one of the areas that staff is looking for some feedback, there's 3 areas tonight, is how we define a formula business. The current zoning code defines it as follows. Formula business, not including formula restaurants, which are prohibited, means a business which is required by contractual or other arrangement to maintain any of the following: standardized services, decor, uniforms, architecture, signs, or other similar features. This shall include, but not be limited to, retail sales and service, visitor accommodations, wholesale, and industrial operations. What's proposed for your consideration tonight, and to make it easier to follow, I underlined some of those specific areas, but the new definition would read as follows. Formula business, not including formula restaurants, which are prohibited, means a business which is required by contractual or other arrangement to maintain any of the following: standardized services, decor, uniforms, architecture, signs, trademark, name, or other similar standardized features which cause them to be substantially identical to 10 or more other businesses in the United States, regardless of ownership or location. This shall include, but not be limited to, retail sales and service, visitor accommodations, wholesale, and industrial operations. Next slide, please. And as we move beyond definitions to the regulatory options related to formula retail, there's also a table that I'll go to after this slide, but the options would be: consider allowing in commercial zoning districts outside the downtown central business district as a permitted use. Consider setting a cap on the total number of formula businesses within a commercial zoning district. And more on the fiscal side, consider how allowing formula retail would help with fiscal tax revenue. Next slide, please. And again, taking cues from the council discussion about our economic development strategy and to what could we do to be less restrictive from our current code, and then how to balance that out with the option 2 being more restrictive. So option 1 essentially is still not going to really change anything in our central business. It would still require a use permit for a formula retail business. It would not have any thresholds attached to it. And then moving into our mixed use and service commercial districts, those we have the ability to look at those as being allowing them by right or permitted uses and not having a maximum. And just as a refresher, our mixed use zoning district has not come to life yet. It was identified in our general plan as a new land use designation, and we have crafted development standards and a whole use table related to mixed use. So we're just, again, thinking ahead of how we want this to really look and set it up correctly going forward. And option 2 being more restrictive. So we would still require the use permit in our central business district, set a maximum of no more than 4 formula businesses allowed, and then have a similar setup for the mixed use where we would require a use permit limit it to a maximum of 4 formula businesses in that zone. And in the service commercial, staff thought we could leave that one as permitted if there were no concerns about that, but cap that at no more than 4. And I wanted to also share a map. Next slide, please. That as we're thinking about locations of this, and I know we're not all familiar with, in particular, where the mixed use zones would be. So this is, even though this is the general plan map, it's the best indicator of where our mixed use zones are going to be. So if you look at the brown area with, Main Street bisecting the map there on that heavy dark line, and you'll see on the west side primarily some parcels that are brown. Those are going to be primarily our mixed use sites. So most of it starts just south of Spring Street, like starting where the station is and going south. And then after we believe right around Charter Oak in that area, we have another few parcels. And then there's another area where the previous project you may know of as Vineland Station is also one of those areas that would be designated to mixed use. And then on the service commercial side, the salmon pink color, I don't have my cursor going here, so apologize for that. The salmon pink color, you will see very predominantly evident as you go towards our southern boundary on Highway 29. And that does include a lot of our properties in our Highway 29 specific plan. So what's interesting here, the reason why I separated these is, character, the footprint of some of these buildings, there is a very distinct change in our urban form, as we all know, when you move from our compact downtown and start moving south, particularly as you cross Pope Street Bridge, you have more of a highway commercial feel, much larger spaces, which would in some ways be much easier and accommodating for a formula business to utilize, because I do believe not all of our spaces downtown would even accommodate a lot of the minimum sizes for these establishments. Next slide, please. And just a short slide on regulating formula restaurants. As I noted, our general plan policy guidance, so my recommendation is to not eliminate the current code prohibition on formula restaurants in the city. If the council did choose to do that, that would require a general plan amendment to change those policies and remove the prohibition on formula restaurants. Next slide, please. And the last area of discussion and this was actually recommended through one of our stakeholder meetings with the downtown, is to create more certainty for some of the applicants that come through the use permit process, particularly if they're proposing a formula business. And rather than having them be subject to our so-called vanilla standard of use permit findings that are very similar city to city, that we would actually create some unique findings. And these are very similar to actually the city of Sonoma has a unique set of findings for their formula businesses. So what's proposed would be 3 of them. I think there is actually a little bit of one correction in number 2 I'll read to you, but starting with number 1, the formula business establishment will promote diversity and variety to assure a balanced mix of commercial uses available to serve both resident and visitor populations. Number 2, the proposed use, together with its design and improvements, is consistent with the unique and historic character of St. Helena, will preserve the distinctive visual appearance and shopping dining experience of St. Helena for its residents and visitors. And then we would have a pause, and then there would be an additional finding, which would be number 3, if the formula business was located in the CB district. And that finding would be the formula business establishment will be compatible with existing uses in the zone and will promote the zone's economic vitality as the downtown commercial core of St. Helena. Next slide, please. So that summarizes the 3 areas that would be extremely helpful for staff to have some policy input after your discussion tonight. And so those 3 areas again are our definition of formula business, how we regulate formula retail and restaurants, and whether we want to amend the code to add specific use permit findings for formula businesses. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm available to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that presentation. Before we get into this, I just want to make a note for the record. I have a bit of concern regarding what I think is a potential conflict of interest regarding Councilmember Hall, who's married to the owner of the local garbage company. I'm just concerned that that if we, in zoning issues, if there's something that generates more waste, revenue from waste, that there may be some conflict of interest. I reached out to the FPPC, have not heard yet. So I'm comfortable continuing the conversation, but I just wanted to note that for the record. And then I'll look, I see Mr. McCann's hand up. Mr. McCann?
Yes. Yeah, thank you. I just want to note, first, thank you, Maya, for the very good presentation and the good work. I just want to note that we're not intending to amend the zoning code tonight. We're looking for direction. Maya's got some good suggestions for that direction. Once we have that, we will return to both the zoning subcommittee, but more importantly to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission will hold public hearings, as will the City Council ultimately on the amendment. So tonight it's direction. If you feel like some of this gets quite precise, we'll have further opportunities to refine things. You need not. Actually, we're not looking for final language tonight. We're really looking for direction back to the subcommittee and to the Planning Commission, and then it'll return back to council. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm seeing our city attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to note also, just for the sake of the audience and for the minutes, that that while I haven't looked at this issue specifically, I have looked into Councilmember Hall's potential conflict of interest issues in another context, and I know that he got direction from the FPPC separately, and they found in that context that he did not have a conflict of interest. And so I tend to think that on this issue specifically related to formula businesses, that it wouldn't give rise to a conflict of interest. But if you have reached out to the FPPC in kind of a broader context, I'm sure we'll get final direction on that one way or the other soon enough. But I did want to note that we have looked at that previously, and I'm comfortable with him participating in the conversation at this point.
Thank you. So any initial council comment or question here? I had a question, unless I see a hand up. So Ms. DeRosa, one of the things we had talked about, and I like the way that you put this together and showed us different approaches. One of the things that had been discussed in the past with formula businesses was the idea that certain levels of, is it a store that has 10 stores around the country? Does it have 25 around the country? Does it have 100? Is there a way to think of a criteria that way? Or is that a possibility to keep a little more uniqueness in the stores, but while still offering some more flexibility?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Absolutely. That's a great comment. And it's interesting because we found in one of the staff report attachments has a list of other cities that we surveyed, and across the board, many of them actually put a number attached to how they define what's that threshold of how many locations and establishments triggers. Okay, yes, that's definitely a formula business. And so that's why we're recommending that we actually add, and I think in some previous discussions, maybe with Councilmember Chateau and others, we talked about 10 potentially being a good number to use as our threshold for that. But again, this is completely open for this is the first time we're really getting into this conversation, and I'm open to your input of what you think is right. But in looking at the other cities that we surveyed, like Carmel, let's see, there was Coronado, that 10 actually seemed to be the lowest. I did see, let's see, Coronado recognized 15 or more. Aspen recognized 11 or more as triggering, okay, if you have 11 or more locations, you meet the criteria. So it's what we think is the right fit for St. Helena.
So that's nice to hear that there's some adjustability there, as well as these other sort of criteria that you put that give some flexibility, and then can be looked at by staff as it comes in and deemed. I'm trying to go back to the actual language, that it's consistent, that the proposed use together with its design and improvements is consistent with the unique and historic character of St. Helena, will preserve the distinctive visual appearance and shopping dining experience of St. Helena for its residents and visitors. So things like that give a tool for staff and the council to look at what's coming forward. I'm seeing Councilmember Hardy.
Thank you. I have a group of comments. One, I think the number 10 is a fine boundary line, as discussed in the staff report. Just throw that out there. Looking at the definition of formula business changes in the report, I couldn't help but notice that we're talking about formula businesses primarily in the retail setting, but we've got a definition that includes wholesale and industrial operations. So I also saw your comment about the City of Sonoma's definition. I definitely think it will be a more coherent and sensible definition if we do something more like what the City of Sonoma does, so that we're not sweeping in industrial and wholesale without any particular reason, at least that I can identify. I looked at the options on how to regulate formula retail in the zoning code. I'm inclined to think for just initiating a change, and I say this because I think the results are by definition unpredictable. We don't know what we'll get, if anything, out of making a change like this. That setting a limit within the districts makes some sense. I don't have a strong idea about the magic number for a cap, but the proposed 4, per district, I think that's a fine place to start, because I really think we need some real world experience in order to make the decisions moving forward. And this relates to a somewhat larger picture thought. And from my perspective, what's challenging for us here is that we have a lot of policies, and you quoted some of that language for us, Director Maya, about the character, of the community, preserving the character, consistent with the character, and so on. But I have a hard time thinking about our goal of revitalizing downtown without concluding that we somehow have to find a way to visualize the downtown of the future. And I say this specifically, or especially, with respect to the rapidly evolving nature of retail economy globally and across the country, and kind of everywhere we look. So there's a real tension there, because doing business today isn't the way it used to be. And so I tend to think when I read the language that we have that we're on pretty solid ground with attention to maintaining and preserving the visual character of Main Street. But you know, I'm thinking about the findings that are part of the staff report. I'm not sure that we want to go beyond that, and with respect to, you know, the sort of resident and visitor experience, I end up wanting a finding that says this proposal will enhance it. I mean, I in this regard, you know, what it's like being a customer or a diner downtown. I think we make a mistake if we set our goal as preservation of the status quo, because in many respects, what we're hearing and what we as individual council members have been saying is that we're very troubled by the status quo. So I think, you know, those are just some thoughts to carry on as you continue to work with this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think that's really pertinent, what you said about the evolving state of retail. There's a shift, and understanding it and looking at where things are going into the future, being nimble and accepting the shifts. Well, we try to keep the good things that we've got, but also look at where we need to go. So I think those comments were right on. So and I see Councilmember Chateau.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with those comments. And so for the 3 areas that you asked, Planning Director DeRosa, I would say the definition looks good with that 10. I'm not an expert. I don't know why another city said 11. If there's some amazing business out there that we could only get because they have 11, I wouldn't want to limit us, but I would trust that that could come back to us if that was the case. I think option 2 makes sense too. Why not just try it out with that cap? So it's not, we still have the trying something new, but we have the assurance that it's not going to be a big rush of too many, since it is a big change for our community. And then the third thing was needing the needing the zone, or was it the general plan change? I don't think we need that if we go with option 2. That was only for option 1, if I understood it correctly.
That's correct. The third item for discussion was the slide with the findings, and do we want to add specific use permit findings for formula businesses?
Okay.
Additional count. Oh, I'm seeing Councilmember Hall.
Thank you. Thank you both, council members Shuto and Hardy. I agree with your comments. I was just curious, Maya. So to Councilmember Hardy's comments about the findings, item 2, would you look at applying that, particularly language like preserve the distinctive visual appearance and shopping dining experience? Would you apply that to all 3 zones the same, or across the board?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I agree with option 2. I like your new definition. I also like the reference to Sonoma. I think that's smart. I also like thinking about the 3 zones as 3 distinct separate parts of town. I'm also keeping myself awake at night wondering what's going to happen with the spray fields in 5 years, right? We certainly can't do affordable housing out there, but maybe we could do something else at some point in time. There's certainly a lot of acreage. We want to keep as much open space and redwood forests and maybe outdoor theaters, et cetera, but maybe that's another zone that at some point we could begin looking at. I'm definitely in favor of making this process for applicants as clear as we possibly can. So the more clarity we provide to the Planning Commission, the more clarity in our code, I think the better. It just helps everybody, saves staff time, saves the council time, saves the city time, and it certainly saves the applicant time. So the clearer we can make all of this stuff, I think, the better. Those are my thoughts on direction.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And any additional council comment before I go to public comment?
Yeah. Thank you, Maya, for this excellent presentation. I'm curious about a couple different ideas. Even if you allow, say you have a cap of formula businesses in each of the districts, it's 4. Do you necessarily sort of give up your rights to weigh in on things like signage and look? In other words, is it a binary choice? Could you have a formula business, but have a little bit of regulation with respect to the look of the business to make it more compatible? In other words, it's not just free game. Here's a formula business and yours is going to look like every other one. Or can we, maintain a little bit of authority to make sure that we are really weighing in on a compatibility issue? Because, there's just some god-awful, ugly formula businesses that would not be compatible in any of our districts, in my view. And I'd like to have a little bit of authority either at the administrative level, which probably is where I feel comfortable, or somewhere else short of a full-blown use permit. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, appreciate the comment. Great suggestion. Actually, I have some very recent experience with this. As you know, the Trek bicycles came in on Main Street and replaced the St. Helena cyclery. And one of the items that they presented to us was that they were eventually going to change the signage. So I think to answer your question is, they still have to conform to our signage standards. And, when I was in Aspen this summer, I noticed like the Starbucks, they don't get to put the whole thing, around, the rail sign. They had to just put their little logo that we all know very well, but that was it. And if you didn't see that, unless you saw people walking with coffee, like that's only, then you'd know that that was Starbucks. So I think that related to exterior and how does it fit in our downtown, like the signage is really important to get that right. It definitely affects the character and how you experience the downtown. And so I think particularly in our new code, I don't have any concerns that they're not going to get a pass on that, for example. Other things, again, in our CB district, because it is a historic recognized National Register district, and all the exterior alterations have to conform to the Secretary of Interior standards. I think that area, I'm not as concerned about any significant change. I do think, we have our Highway 29 specific plan in the southern area of the city. There's definitely some tune-up that I'd love to see happen on our design standards there, but I don't want them to think it's the Wild West where they could come in and just do anything as it relates to, the exterior look. They would still be subject to going through design review. Now, what they do on the inside, that was really interesting working with Trek, because we found out, that even though every store can be different, there's a prototype of a portfolio, if you will, of certain images, the only images they're allowed to use on the wall. And while they can move the racks of their apparel in different places, there's something that's standardized. And of course, that's fine. It's the inside. They should be able to, my personal opinion is they should be able to do what they want on the inside. So I hope that adds a little bit more clarity to your question.
Excellent comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have you given thought about sort of a mom and pop business? I'm focusing on formula restaurants now that start out as not formula restaurants. It's one restaurant, but they start having locations in other cities. So they start out here as one restaurant, and then they sort of go out to other communities. Does our formula business prohibition cover that kind of a situation or not?
It does, and it's very black and white that if you check the box of being a restaurant, it's silent about whether you're more of a mom and pop cottage industry growing. Like Joel Gotts is interesting, right? Because he's grown his business quite a lot, I believe. Was it maybe in the last decade? But I think we want to encourage more of that type of small business. I know in Healdsburg, Dustin Villette, he's got restaurant number 2 now happening around the plaza, as the Matheson is the next. So I don't see this, again, different names, different looks. So I think the key thing to focus here is that we want to create St. Helena as a destination where people come here and have a unique experience. And so I understand why the prohibition on the formula restaurants, because you want to be able to rave about this restaurant that you went to that is unlike anything else that you'll experience, because there's only one of it, right? That's why people come here. So I think, being consistent with the general plan policy now, and let's see how it goes. And like we said, we're starting this on the retail side, and if we need to make a tweak, and we're starting to see some more entrepreneurial spirit where people want to open another one with the same name, maybe we revisit that down the road.
Just for the record, I'm inclined to agree with your analysis on that. I support that. Folks in the community have asked me about that. Okay, I'm not exactly sure, so I thought I'd throw it out there. One last question, and maybe this is for the city attorney, but I know land use is supposed to be focused on land use and not the economics of the use necessarily. But there are questions raised about whether we could use our zoning ordinance to a certain degree to sort of incentivize businesses that pay a sales tax, as opposed to not paying a sales tax.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a question in on that, whether we gain sales tax from art galleries who sell paintings and they're picked up somewhere else in another state, that kind of thing. I know that we don't want to tread on that, but it seems to me that if we can find a way to create incentives for those kinds of businesses, the better, as opposed to incentives where we're not gaining sales tax. Just wanted your thoughts on that also. And then I'm done. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I'll respond, and if City Attorney Walsh wants to add anything after, but it's interesting that you mentioned that, Vice Mayor Dorn, because in our, we were actually just taking a project to Planning Commission at our last meeting, and one of the policy statements, it actually did, and this I think comes from the economic sustainability element, it exactly does ask that we look at, encouraging land uses that actually produce strong fiscal revenues to the city. It's not a zoning issue per se, but this is something encouraging us to want to make sure that we have a balance of land uses and businesses, particularly in our downtown, that help create, fiscal revenue to the city. So there's a policy. Yeah, the zoning might be different. And I'm sure, again, if Mr. Walsh wants to add anything else to that.
I don't really have anything to add. You said that very well, Maya. Essentially, you certainly, we are focused on land use with the with our zoning and our general plan policies. But as part of that, you can factor in, uses that are going to support kind of a solid tax base for the city. And as I imagine you're aware, there are some cities that very aggressively go after sales tax producing uses in order to enhance their internal revenues. So that's certainly a factor that you can consider in kind of establishing zoning policies for the city.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a comment on the idea of a business that starts here, maybe has their flagship here, and then has businesses that they grow their business outside of the area. There's something to that if the flagship is here, there's something special and unique about that. It may be something that they see that the business somewhere else, but when they come to St. Helena, knowing it's the first one, maybe there's some value in that too, so that if somebody comes in here to build a business and with an intent that they'll grow something, we could keep an eye on it to some degree, but having the flagship here would be different than just having another one in a long string. I just want to make that note. I'm going to look to public comment. I'm seeing Councilmember Hardy, and then we'll go to public comment.
Thanks. Not just a point of clarification. Perhaps our planning director can answer, but if there is a situation where a business starts initially in St. Helena and then grows by expansion to other locations outside the city, does that have any consequence under our current code other than possibly it becomes legal non-conforming?
Exactly. That would be my interpretation of how it would be treated in the future once it's established, if it went on to add other businesses outside of the city.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll look to our city clerk, see if we have any public comment.
There are no raised hands.
No raised hands. So we'll bring it back to the council. Unless there's additional comments, I think we're pretty aligned in terms of what we're discussing. Maya, do you get a pretty clear direction in terms of the numbers and the approach and what you're hearing?
Yes, I've gotten the feedback on the definition, and that you think that the number 10 threshold is a good number to use for our code. And for the regulation of the retail businesses, we'll go with option 2. We'll leave the restaurant status quo as prohibited as they are currently, and then we will include the use permit findings as noted in the staff report. Does that summarize what I heard?
That is accurate to what I've heard as well, unless there's any objection from the council. Okay, well, that was an excellent report, and thank you very much. You've brought us some really good things in the last couple of weeks, so thank you very much. I'm seeing City Manager McCann.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to compliment our planning director. That's just a fantastic report, very complicated material, and the report she presented last week. Really just fantastic work. Thank you, Maya.
Thank you, Maya. Well, this is our last item tonight. So if there is nothing else for the good of the order, I'll just keep encouraging folks to conserve water, to work on our fire safe preparations, and we'll see folks at the next meeting as we move forward. So we'll adjourn.
Thank you, Maya.
Good night.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody, for the